Welcome back to TENTENTHS podcast. This is Michael with Adam and Robbie, and we have another guest this week. Very excited to introduce your 2017 Formula Drift Pro 2 champion, Kevin Lawrence. How's it going, Kevin?
Good. What's going on, guys?
Not much. Are you still pumped on your Texas victory?
Oh, yeah. Once, all the dust kind of settled from the event, it took a couple days before it really kind of hit, and I was able to kind of sit back, relax, and kind of enjoy it, really. At first it's kind of like, yeah, everything's there. It's kind of everything's going so fast as far as the event itself was running and, running over to the podium and all that stuff. So it's, immediately when they're trying to get interviews, all that stuff from me, it's just kind of hard to really let it all sink in.
The really crazy thing is if, obviously you weren't listening to the broadcast, but people have probably told you at this point, you were basically counted out.
Yeah.
For winning.
Yeah, I had some texts from my guys back at the shop back in Florida, and they're like, hey, they've kind of already announced, Travis to have the championship, but he's out. So, technically you still have that little chance to go in. So, once I heard from them, I double checked all our math. They're in the hot pits after like the top 16 before the top 8. And I was like, yeah, if I make it all the way to, the finals and actually win it, there's there's that chance that I can take the championship by, I think I calculated 2 or 3 points or something.
Yeah, that's a really crazy thing, because if you look at your score for Texas, I think you had to qualify. You qualified first, and I think you had
second.
You had to qualify.
I think it was minimum second or third for qualify, and then I had to pretty much do exactly what it was and kind of go all the way, battle my way up to the finals and take home the win for the event in order to get the win of the championship. Yeah,
and that was a really crazy part, because even if you're listening to the broadcast, Deanna's like, okay, so there's no way that Kevin can win, and then somebody stopped him, and they're like, well, we've been running the numbers, and basically where he's positioned currently, if he can carry it all the way through, he could technically win. So it was really crazy to see that you were able to pull that off, because obviously you'd won the first event for the year, and you had a pretty decent point standing. But I think when people talked about who potentially could be the champion for 2017 coming into that Texas event, I don't think many people talked about you. So it was pretty rad that you pulled that off.
Yeah, I think FD, like on their Instagram, had put up like a graph of something that they had pulled data from, and the percentages were up there, and I was mentioned in it, like with a pretty low percentage. It was like a 10 or 11 or something percent thing that they had come up with through their whatever they used to generate it, of taking the championship, because I come into Texas being in 5th overall in the championship, so there was quite a few guys ahead of me that are amazing drivers that I'd have to either battle through or have them have a bad weekend for me to get all the way to the top to take the championship over from the 5th place deficit.
So when you were in Texas or anywhere for the calendar, who is kind of who do you look forward to battling, and then who do you think is your biggest challenge when it comes to battling? Starting with Pro 2, we can talk about Pro later, but who in the 2017 season was the most challenging, and who's the most fun to run with?
Everyone's got their good days, bad days, stuff like that. A lot of the guys that went into the final round being placed under are all guys that are definitely heavy hitters as far as driving and how they perform every weekend. Travis has been doing well all year. Has been finishing relatively high and podiumed, I think, 3 of the 4 rounds other than this last one. So he's definitely a big threat and a guy that is a pretty good challenge to go through. Him and I had battled in Orlando in the finals, to where I was able to snake the win out from him there. So he was definitely one of the guys that I had my eyes on. Matt Van Kirk was definitely another one too. He taken me out in Seattle, so I knew he was someone definitely to kind of take potentially take me out of the race and out of the the run for the championship.
And Stratton had that mechanical failure, which was really unfortunate.
That was a huge bummer. Because going in, I was placed under him. I think he was in 3rd going into that round. So he's another guy and Josh Robinson as well was ahead of me. Those guys are definitely amazing drivers and can put it together and do some awesome battles with everyone when the time comes. So to see him, I knew that they were having some issues going right before qualifying with the car, that they were kind of just cross their fingers that they'd be able to make a pass. But I think on his first pass out, the differential in the car ended up grenading, so he was kind of had to bow out for the weekend.
So are you going to take up and move to pro next year?
Yep. Yeah, we're the plan for next year is definitely running the Pro 1 class. I'm going to be campaigning the same car. It's going to go through, just the normal off season. We're going to do a tear down, kind of clean it up, rebuild type deal. New livery, stuff like that. A lot of the stuff in the car I don't want to change just because, I'm super comfortable with it and I know it works well. The only things we're really looking at is definitely dialing in some more grip because the Pro 1 cars are getting crazy fast these days. And then horsepower as well. I've got to turn up the car for next year.
Because you've got a RB25 currently, right?
Yep. Yeah, RB25 is what's in it now. I've got a few RB30 blocks that actually Josh Robinson hooked it up with when he was back home in Melbourne and sent some over from Australia. So big shout out to him for helping me out with that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sick. I watched a bit of that Enjuku. They put together that video series basically on your build a couple years ago or a year ago, whatever that was. And that was a pretty cool series. It was crazy when you guys were running that thing on the dyno and the nitrous backfired in the intake.
Oh yeah. That was a rough time because all that happened and we were running, coming up close to our start of the season. That was in the off season of 15 going into 16 season. That had happened with the car, and so at that point we had to bring the cars back to the shop, get everything kind of checked over so I can get it back to the dyno to actually finish the tune, because that had happened relatively early in the in our session for tuning. So at that point we ended up just kind of pushing my car out, throwing it on the trailer, and getting Nate's car on the dyno to make sure that his was all ready for what it had to be done for. Yeah.
What was really crazy about that though is what it did to the throttle body.
Oh yeah.
It blew on the butterfly guys on the throttle body.
Yep.
It blew that plate. It tacoed it basically.
Oh.
So it didn't do anything to the it didn't hurt the intake manifold, right?
No, yeah, the intake was good. It's funny because when that backfire happened, it tacoed the throttle body outward, and the intakes on my intercooler, which are like cast, are slightly bulged now from it.
Oh, really?
And as well as the car had a full 4-inch oval vibrant performance exhaust on it that we'd custom done, and majority of it now is round. So,
oh my god,
yeah, the amount of air and concussion that came out of that when that happened was just crazy. I mean, everyone was there at the time probably legally deaf for about 4 or 5 seconds before the ringing synced in, and then you had to deal with ringing in your ears for about 15 minutes before we were all able to stop yelling at each other to talk.
I'm sure it was actually terrifying.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Does everybody still have all their limbs? Has anybody got any shrapnel? No, okay, we're okay. It's good.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. It was like, all right, everyone's good. Yeah, all right. What was that? What happened?
Yeah, is the engine in one piece?
Yeah, what's salvageable from the car?
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so,
and then shortly after that, didn't you lose that RB25? It windowed itself?
Yep. Yeah, that one there. So that happened, I think, on a weekend. It was like a Sunday or something night when that happened. So we, pulled that off the dyno, got Nate's car on it to make sure his was all tuned and ready. Because the following week or later that week, like Thursday, we had a test day. Thursday and Friday, we had a test day session set up for at Orlando Speed World, our local track. And luckily, I was able to source the throttle body real quick, get the car back to the dyno the following evening to get the tune, finished, get all the nitrous stuff figured out on there. Because that was actually it was kind of a new setup we were doing with the nitrous. We were trying to compile everything into one controller rather than the year before we had a nitrous controller. We had a standalone computer. We had a separate boost controller. And this year we're getting everything running on one. So, little mistakes on our end caused the backfire there, but it unfortunately it took out that motor in our practice day. I went a full day of literally just kind of beating the hell out of the car. Probably made 25, 30 passes at least of banging limiter, full pull, full full boost, the nitrous on, everything. Then the second day out at our test day, it was literally the first lap out. We get the car out, the trailer, warm it up, and first lap out, I put the car in third to just about initiate on the bank, and I could just, felt it let go and just kind of feel what felt like just thousands of parts just dropped on the floor and were hitting the floorboard as I was driving down the track.
It's crazy. Catastrophic failure.
Yep. Yeah. Luckily, obviously it took out the block and, all of our bottom end stuff. The cylinder head was salvageable, thankfully. So I've got that sitting around. We had another one ready to go for a motor. This one took a little hit of some parts to it, so it needed a little bit of welding to the chamber itself. But other than that, it was pretty well. I think I ended up in maybe one valve out of it, but so it was salvageable head. I got that on the shelf. That's going to be ready for one of these 30 blocks once they hit the shores here.
So the theory on the nitrous is that obviously it gives you a power boost, but you can run a bigger turbocharger on it.
Yep.
Or at least one that takes more pressure to spool. Yeah,
exactly. With with the RB25s, they're relatively small engines. They're like it's a 2.5 liter engine. So we're running. It's relatively I'd say like a mid-frame turbo, comparing it to like something on Nate's car. But it's a 35R. It's the GTX 3582. And so with that size turbo on the 2.5 liter, it comes in pretty late without the nitrous. So we've got the nitrous set up to where it comes on in the earlier RPMs, heavy throttle. We'll spray. We're running about 100 shot on the car, so that'll come on and shut off at about 20 pounds. But the car continues to build boost up to about 28 is our peak boost level.
How often do you have to change that bottle when you're doing a Formula Drift event?
Usually what I can do is I can run like our first day of practice and qualifying, and then about half of the second day's practice event before I have to change it. Okay. So it gets a good bit of runs in it, and it lasts for a pretty decent time. But next year with the bigger engine, I think we're going to up the shot a bit. So it'll probably end up going maybe a bottle a day. We'll most likely be running. Okay,
interesting. I just always wondered about that because we don't have, at least in this area, we don't have a ton of cars that run nitrous, on the program basically, unless they're drag cars. So obviously, that's a completely different setup than running nitrous on a drag car, or whether or not it's it's programmed or on a separate controller. So I was just curious.
Yeah, it was funny because one of my guy Ant here is like our crew chief was the one that was really adamant on us running it, and I was always super nervous about it. But literally the first time I drove the car with the nitrous on it back in 2015. I was just completely sold on it. I was like, all right, this is the greatest thing ever. We're just going to spray everything.
Just add a little bit more. Let's go 150
I just kept
shot.
Telling him, I was like, how much more can we go before we have to worry about it? He's like, well, there's more. Do you want to risk it though? And I'm like, well, no, I need it to kind of stay together. So yeah, no, it's cool just because, how, instantaneous, it'll come on and get the car up into boost. It's got now, like a torque curve of like a V8, but, the RPM spinning of pretty much a 4-cylinder, it revs out so high, and just the straight 6 sound as well, which is definitely a selling point for me with the RBs. So
what's it make for horsepower numbers and stuff?
Yeah, this year we actually turned it down from the previous year because the FDA changed the ruling this year for tire size for Pro 2. So we were limited to run a 255 wide tire in the rear, as to where the previous years I run like a 275, so I lost quite a bit of grip. But we turned the car down from like 725. We turned it down to about 640 wheel.
Holy cow.
But it's, 2.5 liters. So our peak torque is really only about 490. But with the nitrous shot, how early it comes in and how late it stays on with just the high revving engine, it makes the torque curve, pretty ideal for what we're doing with. But obviously, there's some guys out there with, making my horsepower level and the 700-800 foot-pounds of torque with some of these V8 cars. It's pretty insane.
So are you partial to the RB for any particular reason, or is that just part of being on the Enjuku team?
I've kind of grown into them now. Initially, I was never really into the RB stuff. The engine was actually purchased by my crew chief Ant years ago for a Datsun project that he had. and we ended up throwing it in one car years ago for a race that was coming up real quick that we were just decided last minute we would try and throw a car together to run. And after that happened, we're like, all right, well, we're going to build it and run it into the Pro 2 car now. So I kind of just fell into the engine, so to speak. But after a couple years of running them and really getting to know them and learn all the quirks and, the little issues here and all that, and really get to dissect them and figure them out, it's been a pretty awesome time just to learn it and kind of know its weaknesses, but then also its good points and all that as well.
I had my first RB25 experience just this past weekend at IFO in Topeka, and it's a pretty cool engine. The power delivery and the noise and everything about it is cool. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think the noise is the biggest selling point for a lot of them. Obviously they're smaller displacements, so the power and torque's not going to usually be there unless you really put a bunch into it. But the noise, whether it's just the basic setup or fully built, they just kind of have that beautiful sound.
Yeah, and this one was relatively stock, so it was like 250 or 225 or whatever they were when they were new. But still pretty level power delivery. Had a good pull. It was in a S13, so it's in a relatively light chassis, and it was a purpose-built car, and it was it was really cool. We're kind of V8 guys, but I enjoyed that a lot, actually. I thought that was cool.
Yep. Yeah, no, they're fun. Yeah, stock form with the factory turbo is pretty responsive. They still make power up pretty decently high, so it's kind of an all-around setup there. So once you start making more power, you'll see the power level come up, but the torque doesn't really come up too much with it, so it's kind of its Achilles heel there.
Sure. How did you get started in drifting?
Just years ago, got into it with some friends, growing up. We were 16, 17 years old, got our first cars, and, kind of started seeing videos online and just kind of jumped into it. And, I always used to do it for fun, never really thought anything would really come out of it. And back in like 05, 06 is when I initially first started working at Enjuku when I was like 17. And so I was around all the drift cars there and was working on the team, just kind of helping, keep the cars maintained and all that, and kind of travel with them and see them doing all the racing, but never really thought that I'd be in the position I'm at now. So, it really all just kind of started with just, fucking around with friends on the street, and, eventually kind of worked my way into where I got a seat in one of the pro cars.
Did somebody see you driving or knew that drifting was a hobby of yours at Enjuku, and then they moved you into a spot, or how did that work?
Yeah, actually, for years I've been, working there, and everyone has known that I've been into it, and, been driving local events and stuff like that. And then for a couple of years I ended up getting out of it, and I ended up selling my first car, which was I had an 8.6 Corolla that I turbocharged and all. So I ended up selling that so I could, do the adult thing and grow up and buy a house and, kind of focus on that stuff. And after about a year in the house or so, one of the other guys at the shop was like, why aren't you driving a car? Like, we really need to kind of, build you up to get you in a car or something again. Like, and that was when we ended up throwing that motor that he had into, it was actually the R32 Skyline that we have at the shop. We threw that at 25 in there for a Pro-Am that was coming up. And it was kind of like a feeler, like testing for them to see me, how well I could drive and if I was able to, kind of handle the pressure of competition and all that. And
then it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah. At that point they realized that I was able to, definitely was doing well behind the car. That car was the first car I ever really tried to drive as far as like drifting right-hand drive. And I didn't really get a practice day. We kind of threw this car together real quick and went out to a Pro-Am event and was out there just shredding, looking really good. But then once qualifying came around, I went to make the first pass, and in the first turn, the turbo on it grenaded. And so that kind of set me back there. But luckily, one of our buddies, local kid to us, he had a similar turbo on his car. So we literally ran out to the parking lot. He pulled his car into the back of to the track into our pits, and we stole his turbo and threw it on my car before it came back around for my second qualifying run. And then I immediately went out and somehow grenaded his turbo as well in the same spot on the track. So first time in, a right-hand drive car to go out and compete, and it was just kind of
a disaster all around.
Huge, big bill weekend as far as replacing turbos and stuff like that. But, during the practice time, everyone was out there and, saw that I was driving and doing well and getting acclimated to the car relatively quick. And so they wanted to see more. And that was, we kind of just ended up getting into my S13 that we built for my first year of Pro-Am and then Pro 2.
Was that that was a 13.4, right? Didn't it have a conversion on it?
Yep. Yeah. The first car. Yeah. It was a 13.4. Yep.
Okay. I just, how people get into their career as far as, professional driving or, deep into the motorsports industry is interesting for me. The way that people get there always seems to be different, but it's cool to hear that Enjuku has, a cool enough culture within the company that they kind of promote and want to see their employees do well, want to see their employees participate in motorsports or, cars and the type of stuff that they do day to day.
No, yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Like, with Enjuku, I've been there for, since 04, 05 and, definitely, they want to see me grow and, brought me up from pretty much being, away from drifting for a year and, decided, what, let's just kind of throw something together to see what, we can do. And so we ended up throwing that Skyline together for that first event in about 2.5 weeks of, no sleep, kind of just throw a car together. And then once we got that together, it was like, all right, well, now let's maybe put some more time into it, make it a little nicer and, actually not grenade turbos and have issues like that. So we, put some time into it, built the engine because after that first turbo grenaded, it seemed like a bunch of internal parts of the actual turbo itself and bearing made its way down into the oil pan and ended up getting kind of drugged through the engine. So we ended up building that engine. That ended up being the motor to go in my first, that S13 that I ran Pro-Am in.
So we did an episode last week with a guy out of California who runs a kind of an independent motorsports team. And he talked a lot about, motorsport sponsorship and partnerships with companies and things like that. Obviously, you've worked with Enjuku for as long as you've been in drifting, if not longer, or as far as professional. Do they kind of work with other manufacturers then to set up your car? Because I know you work with some other companies. Does that come from within them, or is that something that you have to pursue at some level?
It's a little bit of both. With most of those companies are companies that sponsor the car that we literally deal with on a daily basis through the shop. So there's already a relationship there with the company and myself just being working there with the guys that are over at all the other companies we work with Koenig and Competition Clutch and all the other places. So we've already kind of got that relationship with them, and they've, kind of all been around Enjuku and done little things here and there for the cars in previous years, but we've never really, pursued it to do, big type stuff to where within the past few years is when we actually started, talking with them to try and work out, different things and ideas to try and, obviously help them, generate sales through our shops so that we can, kind of work and get the business growing.
Sure. So you're utilizing a lot of those existing relationships to kind of help propel you through your professional drifting.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of that stuff, kind of funnels through Enjuku. A lot of the sponsorship stuff is, they're sponsors of me, but technically through, the Enjuku outlets.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
With the kind of program that we run, obviously with Enjuku, I'm out there, I'm racing, I'm driving, and, that's, my passion. I love to do it. But at the same time, I get the business aspect of it. We're out there, we're marketing, we're putting these products from these other companies we work with on the car. We're running them, we're putting them through the test. All our sales guys get, to see the products on the car. They get to see how they perform. We're trying to plan out a test day after the season's over to kind of get the whole Enjuku team out with the pro cars, because a lot of the sales guys unfortunately don't get to go to a lot of the rounds and the events and stuff like that I get to travel for. So we're trying to get them out and bring out our the Enjuku R32 as well as my Pro 2 car and kind of get them out there to actually see these a little closer firsthand. I'm trying to get everyone in the car for rides, let people drive the cars, and so that way they've got a better understanding of how the product works, how it drives. So that way, they can use that information for, the business side of it. When a customer calls, I want this triple disc clutch. How does it drive? Oh, well, I drove Kevin's car, through the pits here and then did 3 laps onto the track, and it's absolutely amazing. That was, this is stuff that we're trying to work on, so that way they're, up to date with how everything that we're running on the race cars and we're marketing for is actually performing.
Absolutely. And I'm sure your feedback from your season and your practices gets fed back through Enjuku, but whoever it is that also participates and gives parts to you guys and support for your car, I mean, you give information to them as well. So it's cool how that
we pull
out.
Shocks and clutches and all that at the end of the year, and we'll send it back to them. They can inspect and take whatever data they need out of them to see, obviously after a season of running it up on banked tracks and flat tracks and crashing the car and all that, like how everything's performing. If there's anything that they can improve, obviously they're taking all the data they need to to do and make changes that they can, so that way they can obviously still develop their product even further than where it's already at.
So we talked a little bit about what you're planning to do for the car for 2018, but what other preparations are you looking at for the pro season next year?
It's just going to be a lot of traveling. So my off season here is about to kick off once the car gets back from Irwindale. We've got one more round for Pro 1 that Nate's going to be driving in.
Okay. Yeah.
My car's with him in Texas now, and then we'll be out at Irwindale. So after that's after that event's over next weekend, we'll make our way back here to Florida, and that's when the whole off season will kick off with, starting to talk to all of our partners and everything about, our plans for next year, and any changes we want to try and do to the car are going to start getting done. But as far as, it goes, we've run in, Pro 1, Pro 2 this year with me and Nate. So we've got a pretty good idea of, chassis preparations and car setups and all that for most of the tracks. So, we've been in FD itself for quite a few years now. So we're pretty ready, I think, for making the jump with my car. I think we've got a pretty good idea of where we need to be and what changes we got to make in order to come out and, be competitive with these guys. Because like I said before, the Pro 1 cars to the Pro 2 class is a completely different level with the amount of grip and speed that those cars have. So, it's going to be some good changes to the car to get it gripped up and faster, and, definitely some more power I can make sure I can spin the tires with all the extra grip that we're going to add to it.
Is there anybody on the Pro 1 circuit that kind of you see as a unique challenge?
Trying to think. I mean, obviously, like all the big name guys are people that, I really want to run with, the James Dean, Osbos, all the big name guys, like, the previous champions, Forsberg, Essa, all these guys that have been in here and just shredding are people that I'm super stoked to just kind of get the chance to even, run with and compete with. So, I don't have a specific one that I'm super, I guess, anxious to drive with. I'm more so just kind of stoked to be in the class with them and have the, the chance and, the ability to run with all of them.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see the different styles. I feel like Denofa this year is really he's presented a unique style to the sport, which I think a lot of people have responded to because it's very showy, I guess, for lack of a better term. But then you've got guys like Asbo and Dean that just go out there and are just stupidly consistent when they're out there, and some people like the guys that run more angle, some like the guys, the judges seem to like the guys that are just consistent round after round after round. They can lay down that same line every single time. They can, initiate perfectly, and they're not on the brakes when they're not supposed to be. But it's interesting to see the burgeoning different styles that are happening in pro. And I know I read somebody had kind of compared you to Asbo as far as your consistency, and he's a super consistent driver. Yeah,
definitely, yeah, and it's cool too with like the Pro 1 class. Like there is a lot of these different driving styles, but they're also all differently competitive in their own ways. Obviously the guys that are super consistent are running more of, a little bit less angle, kind of faster line. But the guys that are running the big angle kind of showboaty runs are also still able to really keep up with these guys pretty well. And vice versa positions. The guys that are normally running a little bit faster, a little less angle, when they get behind One of the other cars that's running big angle, they're usually super adaptive to kind of follow that style and pour on the angle where they need to, to match the lead car. Because, obviously with FD, they've got their judging system and all that. And there's drivers meetings at every round, and they pretty much explain, ideally where they want to see the drivers get the cars, how they want them, as far as angle and big angle in one area, a little less here, in order to reach out to this next area to really make it, an awesome, one connect the turn and then an awesome look of just big angle in the car. So, seeing the people with all the different styles, and then when they run in actual battles, how they quickly adapt to whatever car they're following is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's an interesting part about the sport. That's the unique dynamic of having a lead and then a follow run. You have to be able to adapt to your lead driver. Otherwise, you're going to screw up your follow run and you're not going to win that round. So it's interesting the way that's set up. I know a lot of people seem to like to, maybe it's not recent, but people seem to like to complain about the setup or the format or the way that they want to judge the rounds. But like you said, I mean, it's clear what they're expecting. And if you deviate from that, to do something that's maybe a little more showy or more angle, but you lose proximity or whatever, that's the risk you take. Is that going to benefit you, or is it going to, detract from your run? And, somebody that's more consistent is going to, take the win on that round.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. With that, like I said, that's, usually all stuff that they do bring up in the drivers' meetings, and specifically, hound us as drivers. This is what we want to see. This is what we want you to do. And even with the live stream and all this year, they've had, Ryan Sage and Ryan Longtain get on there with, Jared. Yeah. And they're talking about, what stuff that they've actually talked about in the meetings and what they want to see. And, so this year they've definitely made the step to where, because years before, I know there was a lot of people that were not, too happy with the judges' calls, but those are also people that are watching online that weren't there at the drivers' meetings to understand what the judges are specifically looking for in the run. So now that they've got, Ryan Longtain, one of the judges, and then Ryan Sage up there talking and explaining what they're looking for, I think there's been a lot of people now that have been less upset with calls that they normally would have been upset about, because they have an understanding of what the judges are looking to see.
Right, absolutely. I think that's added an interesting dynamic having Ryan up there. So how do you feel about the way that they've got Texas set up? And the only reason I ask is because obviously we saw a roll at Texas because Danny George hit the tire wall and rolled it. And I think in previous years, I'm trying to remember who it was. It was one of the pro drivers had hit that wall because I think they took the tire barrier down, or they hadn't put it up, and he hit it and had a pretty nasty crash.
That was about, I think, last year or maybe 2 years ago. That was Vaughn that went into the wall there. That was before they put the tires in. Yeah, luckily enough, he rotated the car and backed it into the wall, but he probably backed it in doing about 70, 75. And
it's nasty.
It rode off the car really for the rest of the year at that point for him. So he ended up having to, leave the series early at, won that round, and then the following round, Irwindale, he wasn't able to drive because the other car that he had from the previous years was actually, I believe, on its way overseas for a demo or something. So he was just kind of, unfortunately had to bow out for that. But I know a lot of people were upset about the tires that they added there. It did, sure, it was definitely the reason I guess you could say that would cause Danny's car to flip, but in the same sense, it also saved a lot of cars as well that did go into it.
Yeah, if you watch that video of Danny, he hits that wall and you see the tires compress, and then you see him kind of push the car over, and you see the car start to roll and go over. And I think somebody out there, and I wasn't really prepared to ask you this question, but I figured I'd jump into it anyway. I think somebody makes a different wall technology that doesn't spring like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's possible that they could do that there, or if that's more of a permanent fixture and that's a temporary thing that they set up for the drift competitions out there. I'm not really sure, but it's an interesting question for driver safety.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it was obviously something new that they had tried, and everyone, once they'd seen the rollover, was obviously super nervous about it. A lot of drivers, that I personally didn't have any issue with it, but some people were having kind of trouble judging the distance of it because the tires were all just, black stack of tires on the I think it's west end of the track, and the sun, when it's setting that way, it kind of creates a shadow over there. It's still obviously visual that you can see it if you're looking at it, but when you're coming at it in the car, doing 65, 70 mile an hour, at a quick glance, you have to kind of take an extra second to focus to kind of judge your depth to it. But they brought that up in the driver's meeting after Danny had flipped, and then the following morning they had all the tires painted facing outwards, bright yellow to bring, obviously more attention, to have it, easier to see and gauge your distance on it coming into that area. So, I don't think they're going to do the tires next year, but I'm not 100% sure. This is also a track that they previous years have ran the other direction, so to avoid that whole issue in general, they may just even go back to the old layout of the track and run it in reverse.
Yeah, and like I said, maybe they can find a different material to protect that wall. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's an interesting question. It just presents different issues in different formats. So I guess we'll see absolutely how they address it in 2018. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel then about the FIA picking up drifting?
That I was pretty actually super excited to see. Okay. Having them come in and kind of figure out how they do their regulations for all their events that they run and hold. I was pretty stoked to see them jumping on board and finally coming aboard with getting into drifting and recognizing it as a sport and getting involved with it. I watched a bit of the first event. Was it last weekend? And it wasn't, in my eyes, the greatest setup. They had those electronic drift boxes that they're using for trying to judge the scores as far as for qualifying as well as the battles, which I thought was kind of an odd way to do it. It seemed to work really well in my eyes as far as the qualifying aspect of it went, but when it came to the battles, it just kind of seemed tough to really, agree with it, I guess you could say. Sure. As far as, it's obviously the boxes in the car and it's reading different telemetry of what the car's doing, speed and angle and all this, but it's going to read and try and take values off of what it thinks it needs to see. But visually, when there's two cars on track, there's little things that you have to do, in a chase position, whether it's take out a little bit of angle to keep up, or if you're up front, you make a little mistake, and you have to make a small deduction or correction to the car. How big of a hit does that box see on it as far as when it comes to battle time? So that was my biggest thing with it. I thought for qualifying it worked really well. I'd definitely say it would need some improvement going into the battle side of it. But
maybe
obviously
there's a way they could utilize that information to then be judged, as opposed to just straight using that information for what it is.
Yeah, because I think what they were doing in qualifying was how they had the box given its information and what its score would be, but also they had judges there that were there to judge deductions. Okay. Because the box itself, it was, obviously running speed and angle and all this, but it couldn't, I guess, tell 100% as far as a car, because every car has a different wheelbase and length and all that. If a car ran, a tire or two tires over a line and stuff like that. So the judges would come in at that point and judge in deductions to the score for the qualifying stuff. Which I think worked okay, but like I said, when it came to the, primarily the judging for the battles being off those boxes, I thought it was kind of funky and didn't really work out so well.
Yeah, I suppose it'll be interesting to see how that develops. I mean, obviously they need to differentiate themselves enough from Formula Drift to be their own entity, but it's probably going to take some time for them to get a footing to figure out what's going to work for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and definitely because, this past weekend was technically round 1 and round 2 for it. I think there's 4 or 5 rounds that they're doing, and they really only announced that they were going to be doing this within a year ago. So, the prep time to try and really study everyone else, how they're doing it, and build a system that's going to work. And obviously, everything, no matter how much time you really put into it, there's always going to be some variable that's going to come up, the first time you go to put a product into use that you're going to be like, oh, well, this variable came up and we didn't think about it. So this is going to be something that needs to get revised, which I'm sure that they've got a bunch of notes on for the next round.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That was actually a question from Zach Burt. I asked him if there was anything that I should try to throw at you and see what your opinion was. So he's obviously been helpful in organizing this interview in general, but that was one that he threw at me to ask you. So.
Yep. I'm surprised he didn't hit you with the other ones.
He didn't really throw me any curveballs. I was like, why don't you give me something good, Zach? Hook me up with something good. And he's like, oh, well, try this one. And then I can't remember. He gave me one other one. I can't remember what it was, but he didn't really throw any hard questions out there.
Where's the fun in that?
I know.
Come on.
I know. I thought you guys were friends. I figured he'd try to sandbag you.
Yeah, that's usually what he does. Like when I ended up going on for the Maximum Driftcast thing, he was there, I think, commenting the whole time, just trying to get him to ask me just random things.
That's what true friends do. You should see.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got a group for our Facebook page because Facebook's been pushing groups. It's just it's constantly people just ragging and sandbagging us the whole time, but people think it's just absolutely hilarious. Which most of the time it is funny. There's been more memes made about us in the last 2 months than the last 2 years we've been doing this. So
nice
Photoshop skills.
People have.
I'm more of an MS Paint guy when it comes to like pictures and memes. So. I might have to jump in there for that.
You take an existing meme and then you kind of put a box over it using paint and then you kind of type it in there. Yeah, that's exactly my level of Photoshop as well.
Yeah, that's about as far as I go with it. But yeah, that works.
Before we sign out, I did. So obviously Zach. I think you've run with the guys from O-Drift, which is the closest group to us here in Des Moines.
In the Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah, the Omaha guys.
Yeah. I've flown up there, up into the Quad Cities where Zach and Olim are at, and rode with them over. To the O-Drift events. I've been up there, 3 times now.
Okay.
Out to the track that they've got out there in Omaha, and it's an awesome setup up there. They got a great track. It's pretty wide open. There's obviously a good bit of runoff in a lot of the places to where if there's any issues, there's, not worry of walls and stuff like that. I mean, you could pull a Zach, I guess, and
crash
get hit
into
by
somebody.
240.
Yeah.
But,
that was a pretty decent crash. We weren't there for that one, but obviously it totaled out the car, so.
Yeah, that was a rough event. That was, I think, the first one I was up there for.
You were there that day.
Yeah, I was there for that when him and Trevor rode off those cars. So yeah, that was a rough time, and I was supposed to fly out of Omaha the following day after that event, but after all that happened, I ended up changing a flight to fly back out of the Quad Cities area so I could help our buddy Trevor drive his truck and trailer back to the Quad Cities because it was him and his girl that had came out to the event, and after the wreck, I didn't want him to have to drive 5 hours back home and potentially because. With the accident, I think he ended up banging his head. He had a helmet on, obviously, but I think he still ended up bumping his head on the cage and all that, and was already, I got a headache and all that. So, you don't want to risk them driving and him potentially have, some kind of issue. So,
no, definitely not.
Yeah, so I ended up making the drive back over to him and, making sure everyone was able to get home safe and get the cars unloaded. So,
I am glad that O-Drift does they do cage tandems because I know some other groups don't. They'll do cageless tandems and. Yeah, I mean, shit happens.
I don't think so. Pass on that.
I mean, it's places like IFO did cageless tandems, and you're going a lot slower there because you're technically in a parking lot, but,
skid pad.
Shit happens. I mean...
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's a place down here that does, the cageless tandem stuff, which it's a tough, it's definitely a gray area to obviously let people go out on the track and potentially get up to high speeds and, wreck into each other. I know Lone Star... Drift down in Texas, they recently started doing it, but the requirements are the car's got to be, I think, 2006 or 2007 and newer. So, with that, I think I feel a little more comfortable with that. Obviously they're letting people run these newer cars that obviously have a lot better crash technology than a 90s Nissan out on the track.
Yeah.
To do all that stuff because. I think that's a better way of looking at it as far as doing the cageless stuff is definitely using something that's safer and that doesn't have all the crash beams pulled off of it and gutted doors and all that stuff. So
yeah, right, exactly. Because when I drive my RX-7, I've driven it on the road. It's a different experience because the A pillars are paper thin. It was just a different time. they were building cars differently to a different standard. So it's obvious that the crash protection has changed a lot in 30 years now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like a lot of cars now are built they're built well to one, absorb, and two, take the hits that some of the other stuff back in the days would literally break it in half.
Yeah, and we're all guilty of cutting some stuff up sometimes that we shouldn't.
Always.
What you're talking about.
It's never happened. Never with drifters, that's for sure.
No.
They never take bumpers off. They never do any crazy shit like that.
No.
So, well, anyway, did you guys have any questions?
You really got them all.
Yeah.
We just let you run.
With the drift stuff,
we're lucky
yeah.
enough to just listen.
With the drift stuff, I could see that.
Gotcha.
Following FD and all that's kind of a new experience for me. I was supposed to be building a track car and accidentally built a drift car, so here we are.
Yeah, it happens.
Shit happens sometimes, but I really appreciate it. Kevin, thank you very much, and good luck in 2018, and give Zach some shit for us when you see him next.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys for having me on, and definitely we'll be in touch next year. Maybe after mid-season or end of year again, I'll try and see if I can get with you guys to swing back on.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome.
If you end up heading up to O'Drift, hit us up too. So we'll do our best to try to get out there as much as we can, because we do some media stuff too, some photos, and we've got a guy that we work with, Thomas, that does some video and stuff. So we've been trying to provide some coverage out there, because it's a good time, and they're trying to grow too. They've kind of made a conscious effort, especially to push, because they've got a 2-day event. This is going to come out during the 2-day event actually, because it's this Saturday and Sunday, and they've got the biggest crowd I've ever seen at one of those events. They've been pushing really hard. So
definitely. No, yeah, I initially had it on my calendar to make it up there, but with the scheduling for stuff with me and my buddies, as far as for his bachelor party, that unfortunately kind of took the priority for this weekend. But I'll definitely be up there for sure next year for at least a round or two to kind of come hang out, and if logistically it's available and I can bring the car through, I'll definitely have the car through as well.
Yeah, that'd be rad.
So, cool.
All right, well, thanks again, Kevin. We'll talk to you later.
No problem. Yep, talk to you later, guys. Have a good night.
Yep. Bye.
Thanks.
Just going to keep rolling. Adam, you got an opener?
Yeah, I'm born ready.
Let's roll into the regularly scheduled programming, Robbie. Using industry terms, media professional industry terms. So I think at this point we would have Adam's opener presented by Eyes Up Auto Art.
All right, so this weekend, for those of you that follow me on Instagram, you're already aware of this. I went to another one of my favorite things in the world, auctions, and I experienced a section of muscle car culture that I haven't really dealt with very much.
How is there a muscle car culture you haven't dealt with?
And this
Your dad should be offended.
This is building and restoring cars to numbers matching spec and the insanity that goes with that.
You're talking like paint mark to show the torque?
No, not quite. My dad's not that overboard yet. But
are you talking about this is your dad that's
my
spiraled
dad,
down this road of insanity?
I think a lot of people know this, but my dad is restoring a 70 Trans Am right now. It's one of his high school dream cars, and he's well into being done with the body work on it. But the motor that's in it is not quite correct, and if he can get that motor all the way there, and that car is very close to original front to back and is all the hallowed numbers matching, it's worth a lot more, like significantly.
Right.
And so, in the past when I've helped my dad restore cars and we've gone on hunts for parts like at swap meets and auctions and junkyards and stuff like that, it's more been just trying to find the parts, not trying to find these numbers matching parts. And so I didn't know quite how crazy it gets. But have you ever dealt with this, Michael? Because I don't think your dad is that guy either.
I ignore those people. That said, we have, so for his 68 Camaro, we do have all the numbers matching components for that car. It's just that car's original option setup with engine, transmission, rear end was not that desirable. So we have them. We're not going to get rid of them. We're not going to build something else out of them, but that's as far as we've gone.
Right. So where my dad stands right now, he's got the motor, the block itself that he has is the correct block. If I remember right, it's the correct block. And it's so all of these things, the block, the heads, the intake manifold, the carburetor, all that stuff is date stamped. Right?
Okay.
So on a Pontiac, it's a 5-digit date code. The first character is a number or is a letter. A through, I think, is it L? Is the 12th letter? That stands for the month. So A is January all the way down through. You know, B, February, down through. And then the second two letters, or sorry, numbers at that point, are the day it was made in that month.
Oh, no.
Yep. So it'll be like A21. That was made January 21st. And then the last number is the single digit number is the year it was manufactured. So it'll be like A21-1. That would be January 21st, 1971. And that is stamped on the block, the heads, and the intake manifold. And all of those, and each head, not just, you know, and all of those numbers need to be 3 to 5 days apart, no more than. Because that's how that stuff would cycle through.
Yeah, that was my next question.
And so, and then those date stamps need to be within 90 days of the build date of the car previously. So, like, if you have a March car, those date stamps need to be January or February, but they can't be June.
No.
Because then they couldn't have existed when your car was built. That doesn't count.
I can see why that's valuable. But
when
God.
But when it's in the car, I don't think that you can see it.
No, of course not.
Because it's like on the back.
You'd have to look really hard.
You have to know what you're looking for.
I think you'd have to be in there with like a mirror and a flashlight, and
I don't know what
I think you'd have to get real into it.
Yeah, I can't remember. So on GM heads, they're the same. The heads are the same. They're just rotated.
Yeah.
And I don't remember where the
not
casting...
a left and a right.
Right. I don't know where the casting mark is, if it's on the front or the back. But so on one, it's going to be on the front, and on one, it's going to be on the back. I don't remember. And I don't remember where the casting number is on the block, if it's on the front or if it's on the... I don't freaking know. But yeah, regardless, who's looking that close?
Well, so I can tell you this.
Or knows.
This was Pontiac stuff. The sale we went to was apparently there's a guy in Hutchinson, Minnesota, who runs a shop that just deals in parts and restoration for basically 65 to 70 GTOs.
Okay.
And the motors that were in those were the same that are in the Firebirds. There's no difference. They're just, this was a GTO and that was a Firebird. But the motors are the same. So then you have standard small block Pontiac. You have big block 400s and 455s and Ram Air 3s and Ram Air 4s and all those things have different serial numbers, right? But like the heads for the Ram Air 3 or the Ram Air 4 will bolt onto the same block. So first what you have to do is you have to find Ram Air 3 heads. And the way you find that is that on the center exhaust, or on the center, I think exhaust runners, there are numbers or letters, depending on what head you're looking for, stamped on there. And the one we're looking for specifically is 12. So this guy, I don't know, there had to have been 30 sets of heads there that he was selling. So we're going through. This one's marked 12. Okay. But that's a E. Nope, that's too late in the year. Scratch those. And then there were 2 sets of 12 heads there. Okay. One of them they were made too late in the year, but they were completely finished. They were in
ready to go.
Trash bags, like from a machine shop, ready to go. You could have dropped them on a car and drove it down the road that day. The other set were bare, no valves, no springs, no nothing. They're just bare. And they were both 12s. And one of them was a January, which is what my dad needs, but the other was like a June.
And
that's
no good.
That doesn't count.
Worthless. You can't buy one head and try to find the other one, or do those have to be within 5 days of each other?
That was the thing. That was the argument that we were trying to figure out. But heads really need to be really close. They need to be same day or like day and day after. You know, they have to be even closer together than each of the individual parts as a whole. So my dad was debating, do I buy that other set of 12 heads and then I'll have one that's the right date code. And then do I try and find that other one, or is that even going to be worse? Who knows, right?
You'd at least give yourself one. You've started the collection of heads to finally get you where you need.
The weird thing I've found out about heads for these V8s is that a pair of heads, or a single head, is worth less than half of a pair of heads. If you have a single head, it's worth $100. If you have a pair of heads, they're worth $400. It's stuff like that.
So you'd have to buy them both.
At least in like weird Pontiac stuff. So like realistically, if you especially if he wasn't that worried about trying to get this thing, dead nuts numbers matching, and he just found one 12 head, he could buy that one and then go find another one and only have $200 and a $400 set of heads. But that's not what he's trying to do, and that makes this even worse. And so what ended up happening for us that day, of course, those were the very last things they were going to sell. So
of course,
we decided, you know what? This isn't worth it. What they were going to do is they had everything palletized. There'd be like 6 sets of heads on a pallet, and they were going to do choice. So you bid. I want those. Okay, those are mine. Bid. I want those. All right. And then, they just go until that pallet is empty, then they move to the next one, which is probably the best way. So you bid as high as you're willing to go on the heads you want, and then stop there. And hopefully the guy you were bidding against doesn't want the same set of heads you were trying to buy. So that's how they did that, which was kind of annoying. But at the same time, I get it. There had to have been, 40 nose cones for like 70 GTOs there.
So are those date coded too?
Probably. No.
They got that paint pen mark on the inside,
Yeah.
Yeah, thankfully he's not gone head over heels that far into this restoration. Mostly because he had to replace a lot, like the floor pan and stuff like that. That's not original sheet metal anymore, so it doesn't count anyway.
Oh.
But if the motor is all there and the frame and the body is in good shape, and right now it is all either GM parts, original, or NOS parts that came from GM. So that's important. None of it is like NPD parts or National Parts Depot. None of it's those. So that's a big deal for that car, I guess. But I just found it so weird because here we are going through intake manifolds, like no, wrong date. And then carburetors. They're not even made by GM. They're buying them from a third party, but they're date stamped, and we got to find the right frickin' one.
That shouldn't matter at all.
And he's got the carburetor that he has and the carburetor that he wants. There is no physical difference. None.
Just the stamp.
Just a stamp. This one's 2 years too new or something like that.
I assume there's counterfeiters out there.
Oh, I'm sure there
everywhere.
Is. I'm sure there is. Well, I don't know, I guess. For the carburetors, I could see that probably being somewhat of an issue. But again, there's probably not enough demand for that to be worth counterfeiting.
Yeah, I suppose.
I don't know.
Shit's wild. You're trying to explain this to two people that have U.S. engines and JDM cars.
Right?
It's like, I don't
But
sure.
Yeah. At the same time, we're there looking for a big block Pontiac to put in his gasser project, and that didn't matter what it was. We just we just need a motor. So like he's on like two extreme opposite ends of the spectrum with two projects he's currently working on right now.
I get it.
So that's the world I am having to live in right now.
I do get it. But he's not done a restoration like this before, right?
We have done lots of restorations of this level, but never has he been worried about getting the numbers matching parts.
Yeah.
Because either he had them already, so I didn't have to experience the finding.
The misery?
Or he didn't care at all to begin with.
So it's a different thing.
It's just something I've never experienced. Hunt. I never realized that. Like, I just figured as long as you had a casting number that worked, that was all that mattered. I didn't realize that there were date codes on the block and the heads and the intake manifold and the carburetor, and I didn't realize that it was that level of ridiculous. I just figured 455 is a 455. As long as it's all Ram Air 3 parts, it's good. It's not the case. And I didn't realize that. It's way, way more complicated than I thought it was. It's just a really weird thing.
Yeah, what a nightmare that would be to find parts, though.
Especially nowadays.
At least now you could go on the internet and be like, I need this date code and someone might have it.
You know, there's probably companies out there now that the thing about the internet is I think it was great when it first started, and everybody's like, oh, I can sell these. I've got these heads. I can put them on eBay, and somebody will buy them, and that guy needs them and all. But now there's these weird vendors where, okay, I've got a set of 1970. I've got January 1970. Pick an engine. I've got the 302. I've got 1969 302 Chevy heads. You know, I mean, it was a very limited run of heads.
Here's your date code.
I'm going to put them on the internet. I'm going to charge $2,000 for them, and I'm going to sit on them for 2-3 years. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So you got those guys, you know, you could go through eBay and probably find what you're looking for, but then you've got those guys that are like, fuck all y'all, I'm just going to go to an auction. I'm going to buy everything. I'm going to clean it all up. I'm going to put it online, and I'm going to charge double what, you know, anybody else is going to. And if you want them that bad, you pay for them.
Yeah, they're out there.
Because I see it with, it's really prevalent in watches. Like extremely prevalent.
JDM Nismo parts are that way too.
Yeah, that's
They're
another
worth
good one too.
Worth their weight in gold.
JDM parts in general.
Yeah, like a Nismo cigarette outlet, like it looks like a kill switch, $125, just for a little plug-in thing that goes into your cigarette lighter.
But people buy that shit.
But it says Nismo on it. It's from Japan.
JDM shit.
Like
JDM
everybody.
People, JDM is
Like I don't.
No, that's the crazy thing.
I don't think I know anybody who would do that.
Go to the Zelvia.net forums. Everyone's too poor to pay anything for anything.
That's the thing.
Until you throw a Nismo JDM part on there, and then it's worth. Everyone will pay whatever it's worth, like $125. I'll PM you right now, and it's sold within that day.
Shit's crazy.
But if you
they do it with Subarus. Like the guys will like.
Oh yeah.
Iowa Subaru Club. This is a long time ago because I'm not when like Bill, you know, Bill that has Team Cornfed, when I kind of moved back to the area, and then he kind of had me in the club, even though I wasn't in the club. You see those guys like importing bumpers and shit? Crazy money. Crazy money.
But those look better.
Yeah, I know. And we've talked about this before.
I think they are overpriced. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but they are much better aesthetically than the USDM bumper.
They are. But they'll spend
but
that shit on.
Lighter,
they'll send. But
chill
they'll
the fuck out.
Okay, so the bumper is a bad example, but they'll spend that money on other dumb
Everything.
shit.
Radiator shrouds that have Japanese on them instead.
Yeah.
You
Just
know,
crazy
with your,
shit.
like your serpentine belt routing, and it's in Japanese.
Except for that Cavalier from 2016, Good Life, that was rad as shit.
Sick as fuck, dude.
It was pretty sick.
It was a Toyota Cavalier.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
But you say that now. Now I think about that. The taillights are just slightly different. Like there's amber in the taillights.
Just a little.
Right?
Yeah.
Dude,
worth tons of money.
Sylvia taillights?
Tons of money.
Sylvia taillights? Or no.
Headlights. Good luck buying a Sylvia headlight.
Is it Sylvia headlights?
Or any 240 has SX
Is that little Sylvia thing, the grill, for lack of a better term, that you have, is that big money?
Yeah, mine's kind of sought after. I don't want to tell you what I spent on it.
It's not. What am I?
Luckily, I had a good one that wasn't broke, so I was able to sell that. But it didn't come close to what I spent on this one.
The grill on my Omni is really easily broken, and so those are worth their weight in gold if they're not broken. But that's a little. It's just because it's a really commonly broken part, so there's only so many.
Yeah, so the Sylvia, I can't think what the design's called, but yeah, that front end or that grill is pretty sought after. So luckily, a lot of people import them, and then they're available. But yeah, they're usually worth quite a bit of money. This one actually was like a weird green color and wasn't in the best of shape. So when I got it, I'm like, oh, well, perfect. I'll clean it up, paint it black, save a little bit of money. But it was pretty expensive.
One of the guys from Mighty Car Mods, he built that 180 SX. He got a taillight conversion from Japan, JDM taillight conversion thing. Can't remember what it was called. $1,800.
Nope.
Oh,
nope.
$1,800 for
Absolutely
taillights.
not.
And a little panel in between. You know, on the 13, it's got the panel in between. $1,800.
That's too many.
Cash money. I know that's probably Australian dollars, which is different, but
still,
1,500, 14, 13,000, still too much.
It's still too much. Knock a zero off and let's talk.
You know what the problem is, though? You'd get those. Somebody would rear end you for sure.
Yeah.
Explain that to the insurance company. No.
Sure.
I had $1,800 taillights. You don't
No,
understand.
you didn't. I don't care.
Cool story. We're going to send you the $40 ones.
I legitimately had anxiety the first time I hit a June bug, or with the grill. I got out and was like, I know I damaged my grill, and I did. I hit the grill.
Of course it did.
It was fine.
It's Murphy's Law.
It's just a stupid grill.
Murphy's Law, when you spend stupid money on stuff like that, is something's going to happen to it.
Oh, yeah.
The grill on the Omni, perfect when I bought it. 2 weeks in, hit a bird.
Rock.
Now it's
bird.
cracked.
Yep.
Screwed.
Son of a bitch.
It's like when you buy a car
Yep. I was
It's
gonna
like
say
the first 2 weeks, you're gonna fucking ram
Oh,
a door.
yeah.
It
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
matter.
there's nothing worse than a brand new paint job because there will be a scratch. Not if, when.
Oh, I remember that anxiety from
Yep, the 240 got it painted. I was moving the hood from the back of the garage to the front of the garage. It was on one of those rollers. There's no reason to touch nothing. Everything's away.
mobile.
It's mobile. I can just roll it real nice. The edge of the hood scratched the fender. No. Like 3-inch long scratch. All just brand new paint job scratched. Yeah,
Been there.
That's when a grown man throws a temper tantrum.
This is why I don't like paint, because my memories of shooting it are shit getting in it. Like spending hours and
Dust.
hours and hours of trying to, we talked about building clean rooms and vacuum. It's never clean. That's my burning memory of paint, is like, something's going to get in it.
Yeah, that or the flaw. No one else can see the flaws.
Oh, I know
but
where
you
all
know
the
where
flaws are. I know where all
There's
the
that.
flaws
There's that
are.
one gnat that landed in the paint. It's still in the clear. Then there's that one spot where you pulled the hose around, but then it accidentally slapped up against the side of the
Yep.
car. There's a big old line there. No one else can see it, but you
Or
know
shit
it's
like
there.
the flake is different, and once not very much, but it's just a little bit different.
if you put the flashlight on it, you can see that the metallic isn't even.
So if you enjoy sanity, I would suggest not painting.
Stay away from bodywork
Don't do
if you
paint.
want to enjoy your car.
And don't paint anything black,
Yeah.
ever.
took me-
Go ahead and try to paint flat black. Then
Not
tell me how
flat for sure.
Yeah, tell me how that goes. It'll never match.
It
It'll
took
never
me 8
work.
months to realize that one fender is a slightly different shade of gold on the Omni, but now I see it every time
I know,
see
it
that
drives you
car.
insane. It's
The paint's too light on the 240. It's too transparent.
Yep.
And I notice it every time
See,
I
I've
drive
never
it in the
noticed
daylight.
that.
Yeah, you're the one
because
that
I've
brought that
never
up.
seen it not the
That
way it
color.
looks right now.
Yep.
I didn't see that car before you painted it, so I don't see that. But you are like, it drives you nuts.
I'm ready to wrap the car a completely different color because I can't stand the fact that in the broad daylight you can tell that it's not as dark as it's supposed
The
to.
really funny thing about that is like people be like, dude, this is a sick fucking color, and you're like, no, it
Yeah,
sucks.
exactly.
It's terrible. I hate it.
It was
It was supposed to be different.
It was a great color, but I ran out of paint.
That's what happened.
It's sort of platinum pearl.
That's what happened on the Camaro, is that we thought we had enough paint, but we had this really shitty Harbor Freight gun, and it was just spraying shit everywhere. So we ran out of paint. We're like, okay, what are we gonna do? Well, let's go get more paint. It's not
You'll never
quite-
get- no.
There's a spot that you can see it, and if I go out there, I could show it to you, where we were trying to sand the color to get it
To match?
to get it smooth. To try to get the color smooth, and blew through the top coat of the color. No, and you can see the first can of paint underneath it.
Damn it.
I don't think anybody knows where it is, but I know where it is.
That's all that matters.
It's so,
You'll be washing your car, just might.
and you're like, why even bother? Screw it. I don't even like this car.
Just park it in the garage and forget it exists.
So don't do paint. Is the
Yep.
pay somebody else to do your paint?
Yep.
So expensive though. It's
Yeah,
crazy. It's
Well,
crazy.
Then if you pay someone to do it, you'll critique it like, oh, I paid a bunch of money, so it has to be perfect, and then you still find the fucking flaws.
But at least they're not your.
They're not my flaws.
Right. I didn't do that. Somebody else.
No,
did.
that's his fault. It's still there.
Hey,
But,
I paid somebody for that.
Rule number 1: always have someone to blame.
oh yeah, for sure.
It's not yourself.
This was not my fault.
No.
This paint job was someone else's fault.
So
weird tangent.
just two little things about that auction real quick, just because it's kind of funny. That auction was unique in the fact that it's one of the few auctions I've ever been to where the cars went for nothing, but the parts went for crazy money.
Really?
Well, so I think everybody who was there already owns the GTO they're trying to restore,
Yeah, I can see
and they
that.
just need some parts. Nobody was interested in the cars that were sitting outside.
So that orange and white, or that orange or white judge.
The orange one, well, the white one was completely restored.
Oh.
All it needed to be was put back together, and most of the parts were sitting there behind it.
Okay.
$22,000 for that car. It is a Judge, but it
Yep.
was a Ram Air 3 car, not a Ram Air 4 car, which I know means nothing to
Jack
you
shit
and,
to us,
and
but-
most of the people here. But the Ram Air 4 is the very valuable one.
Robbie's been looking for a 4. He's been DMing me about it for
Yeah,
weeks
for
now.
sure.
Weeks.
But so my dad's obsessed with 65 GTOs. He had one when he was, in his teens, and it was one of those. It's one of those that got away.
Yeah,
we all have that.
Nah, man, just keep them all. Just don't sell them.
Still got
you guys
mine.
are doing this shit wrong. Seriously, you listen to old people for like years, like, oh, I never should have sold that. Guess what, mofo? I'm not selling any of my shit.
Yeah, but so there were a couple of them there, and one of them had been a race car for most of its life, it looked like.
Yep.
And so he's got this gasser project. I was like, Dad, a 65 GTO gasser would be sweet. And he was like, no, I'm not. No. But they sold the cars first. And that GTO, they sold that restored one, and it went for $22,000. And my dad and I are sitting there thinking, like, we figured that was a $50,000 car.
See, that's not a.
If this was at that
price.
Gabeling auction
Yeah.
I went to, a few months back, that'd have been a $50,000 car.
Right.
So my dad's like, well, shit. And so he texts Mom, and he's like, well,
How much money do we have in the fund account?
no, that wasn't what it was. He was like, might be coming home with a car. And she goes, no, you're not. And I said, Dad, technically, we didn't bring a trailer, which means the first time we come home, we didn't come home with a car. So, but
Semantics.
Yeah, they get up to the car that he wants, and bidding. He starts a number, nobody bids on it, right? So he drops it, and my dad's like, "Oh shit!" And I'm sitting here like poking the bear, right? I'm like, "Dad, you can't take that money with you when you die.
You can't
just
afford
buy it
to not
already,
buy it.
Bro.
YOLO, Dad,
Bro,
come on, just buy
want,
it."
I want the car for inheritance, not the money anyway.
That's what I keep telling him, because like every time we go to one of these things, this is your inheritance. I'm like, good, but I get all these sweet ass
Spend it,
cars,
dude.
I'm not going to fight with Erin over these cars. She doesn't give a shit about those.
She's going to end up with a house. I'm going to end up with a car. It's going to be
Everyone's going to be happy. But the one, they had two there. The one sold for like a reasonable sum, but just a little bit more than what my dad was really willing to pay when he doesn't need it to begin with. But the other one didn't, and I'm just like poking him, right? Like like grabbing his hand and trying to lift it up, just like, let's buy this freaking thing, Dad. Who cares? He wasn't happy. He literally like walked away mid auction, like, just, we're going over here now. So, but the other thing I thought was funny, other than the fact that those cars sold for nothing, essentially, was that all of them were drivetrainless. But if you spent the time to look at all what was inside, they're all there.
Oh, no shit.
So that's why they sold those cars first. Well, I bought the car, now I got to buy the goddamn drivetrain.
The rest
now
of the
I got to go
parts.
inside, and I got to buy the grill, and I got to buy that transmission, I got to buy that block, and those heads, and that intake manifold.
So does he do this like once or twice a year, where he's just like,
I don't know.
He has to.
I've
right?
never seen it before. The thing that was interesting about it was that most of the stuff that was there was in pretty good shape, but it was, for GTO stuff, pretty run of the mill. The
Okay.
really rare, really hard to find stuff like the Ram Air 4 stuff and things like that, none of that was there. Like the hoods with the tacks in them,
Yep.
because that's a
Yeah, the hood tax is a big deal.
if I was going to own one, I'd have to have it, right?
Of course.
None of the hoods, there were 24 hoods there. None of them have that. They're just regular hoods. They got the hood scoops in them, but they don't have the hood tack.
And it has to be the
You know?
original hood tax if you have a reman, or it's not worth anything.
So while there were a ton of parts there, he was holding on to the stuff that's really valuable. So I don't know if he was just liquidating and trying to free up some space. And to my knowledge, this is the only one he's done. So, boom.
rad.
That's right.
Don't forget to check out Eyes Up Auto Art, EYESUP Auto Art, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Hit him up with that DM if you want a picture of your own car or somebody else's car, or if you're giving a gift. You know the drill by now. Christmas is coming up. It's sneaking up, dude. By the time this comes out, what is it going to be? The 8th?
Yeah, like
October 8th?
10 weeks till Christmas.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy. That's crazy. Think about that.
All I get
That's
from
seriously
that
crazy.
is that it's going to rain.
No, it's gonna snow.
Or snow, I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
sorry.
it might snow.
It's gonna rain tomorrow. It's gonna snow in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now, it will for sure be snowing in Iowa or Omaha. Hopefully, we can avoid that this weekend. Because who knows?
It looks like it.
In the Midwest, shit gets wild out here.
Quick side note for everybody before we start news.
Okay.
Kevin Lawrence has already joined our group.
Oh, what? Man, that's cool.
What? What?
What kind of weird day are we having?
He's there.
You do realize that we're gonna have a meme from Kevin Lawrence today.
He's already
probably-
posted.
he's
I didn't
probably a
look at it 'cause,
professional.
but he's already made a post.
What? Greetings, all. I told there are memes here. Does anybody know who that is? Does anybody know who this is right
They
now?
will on Sunday. Sunday.
Shit's wild.
Anyway.
What was I supposed to do next, Robbie?
We were just gonna. We were gonna talk about import face-off. Do you want to do another topic?
Can we do it?
Let's do it next week.
Let's do that
Can we
next
do
week.
that next week?
We're
What are we
already like
talking
an
about?
hour and a half in.
Let's do that next
Let's
week.
do it next week. That'd be easier.
Okay.
So we want to do the news presented by Petrolbox.
And we can start this off with Michael's V8 swap-ready Maserati is for sale in Delaware. Have you seen this?
It is ready, and you know what was interesting? Did you read the comments on some of the posts on like the drive and stuff like that?
Not really. I've been reading the Jalopnik comments lately just because they're more entertaining than the articles.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
for sure,
for sure.
100%.
And they're
100%.
correct most
and
of the time.
they're actually full of engineers and people with correct opinions.
You
about
have the
things.
far end of the spectrum, the guys that really know what they're talking about, that just ridicule the author. They're my favorites. And then you got the other guys that are like, they have no clue about anything. And then they just make me
Standard
sad.
And then
internet
they
things.
argue about things back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
And then one of them finally has to go, stop, I'm an engineer. Stop. Just stop.
My favorite part is when the author has to defend himself in the comments. And I'm like, that's when you know, just take it down. It's over. If you're defending yourself in the
Oh,
comment,
they never do that, though.
defend themselves in the
Take it
comment?
down.
No, they never take it down. No.
No, they just leave it.
They just let them defend
Wrong.
them all over and over. But anyways, if you remember, like, what is it, 2 years ago? They had that really crappy, like, Grand Am or whatever they're trying to sell on Craigslist for $300.
Yeah.
And he wrote that ridiculous ad, and it went
Greatest
viral.
thing ever.
Yeah.
I think this guy was basically trying to copy that and
Yeah.
get it to go viral, and it kind of did.
Success.
So he's talking about how this thing is going to suck your life away and bankrupt you, and basically he's just selling it. I mean,
It's still-
it's perfect for you. I mean, it's overpriced, but
It's
perfect
overpriced
for you.
for
too
sure.
much.
The thing is, though, if you read the comments on the other pages, the guys are like, "Oh, LS swap candidate for sure." And I was like, I thought people would be like,
Damn it.
"Oh, no, sir. Excuse me.
Oh,
You don't understand the heritage of the brand that is Maserati, sir. If you could please stop." I thought because that's what everywhere else in the entire world,
yeah.
everybody else
Oh,
says
yeah.
that shit. But on those comments, they're like, "Yeah, dude, sounds like a great idea." It's like, what the fuck's going
That's
on?
because everybody's been beaten into submission. They just
Parallel
don't even care
universe.
anymore.
Shit's wild in here in Twilight Zone, Flat Earth. So this one is the right car to do it
He just
with.
throws it in so casually. Oh, gosh.
I heard a new theory today.
Oh, God. Let's hear it. I'm excited.
All
I
right,
need a good
side
theory
note.
in my life.
Shit was wild, and it's somebody that I know, and somebody else was telling me, like, bro, did you know this dude
That's what he
thinks this
thinks?
shit? The Earth isn't flat; it's a curved disc,
That's
That's
why
how
we
you
have a
get the
curve.
curvature.
Oh, for God's sake.
Oh.
and our overlords. For real, dude. I got to find this on the internet because I want to know like how many people actually believe this.
Hashtag
Too
curved
many.
earth.
Our overlords have built a dome over the disc.
yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
keeps all the shit in, you know. And not only that, it harvests our energy. And I assume when he,
For what?
Oh, that's why we have to sleep at night.
probably. I assume that he meant like life energy. Like we
Oh.
give off life energy and it harvests it.
And then we die?
Well, we die eventually. Yeah, I think it's
we're
like a
out of life
Matrix
energy.
thing, but it's like
Oh, okay.
we're all out doing stuff and they're harvesting our energy through the dome. Because apparently there's some videos on YouTube of launching rockets into space and they run into the dome. I don't know, dude. Shit's wild. The thing is, the problem is, the problem actually is that people who are decent at editing videos and are crazy go on YouTube and
they
make a
make
video.
them.
They make a
Right,
video
right.
with a bunch of fake science and bullshit, and then people go, "Yeah, that makes a lot of sense."
Yeah, no, it's real for sure.
And then
No
they-
one can fake that video.
And then they tell other people, and they watch the video, and they go, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." And then all of a sudden, there's like
a cult following.
2 million of them, and they're out there telling people that the Earth is a disc, and that our overlords are stealing our life energy.
If you want to be rich and famous, start a religion. It's really that simple.
Anyway, I just heard that today. And
No,
I was like,
yeah, we live in a world where the astronauts have to go on Twitter and defend the fact that the Earth is round. Because that rapper B.O.B.,
Yeah.
he's starting a fund to pay for something. I don't know how. They got like a bunch of money.
he wanted to build a rocket. You know what Tim told me? Bro, build a fucking weather balloon. Why do you need a rocket? A weather balloon would cost like a few grand.
Yeah, it's like- it's not even that hard.
$100,000 rocket. We're gonna launch this shit into space. Weather balloon, dude.
Yeah, and then like Buzz Aldrin and all these other astronauts be like, I can tell you, the Earth is round.
Nah,
I went around it.
They're government shills. You can't trust them.
That's the problem. They're being paid by NASA. That's the problem. That is the problem.
Okay.
In all seriousness, that's their argument. Is that
I know
they're
it
being
is.
paid by the government. Joe Rogan's being paid by the government.
And that's-
Neil deGrasse Tyson's being paid by the government.
That's a hard I don't. I'm
And
not.
that's
I'm
I
not
understand.
supporting this,
I
but it's
understand.
very hard to argue
That's
that
where
point.
it stops. That's where it stops. It's like, dude, do you really believe that? Like, yeah, dude, I'm telling you, they're all getting paid by the government. Where's this money coming from? The government is they can just print money, and then that's where it goes. And then you're like,
Inflation, bro.
and then you can't argue with them because you can't explain how the Federal Reserve works. Like, you're just going down this path where you can't win. You can't win because then they're just like, dude, I saw it on YouTube, man.
You can't
Saw it on
fight
YouTube.
stupidity with logic. It doesn't work that way.
No, because they'll always slip out on you. They'll always find a way to weasel their way out of it, and then you got to go do research
Yeah,
to
you-
argue with them. That's where it goes wrong. Because
You think, and then they just argue.
right, and as soon as you start bringing, you got to leave to bring logic in. They're like, see, he couldn't prove his point. Couldn't prove his point. It's got to be flat, dude. Shit's got to be flat.
Couldn't prove his point.
Couldn't prove his point. There is round. Have you seen the Earth? No, you haven't. Could be flat. You don't know. You don't know, dude. That's all I'm saying. Just don't know. That's all I'm saying.
What a wild tangent we just went on.
Overlords. So anyway, on the Maserati,
Yes, please.
people were all about LS swapping it, and yeah, for sure, this one was too expensive.
16,000 for a over or completely run down V8 or not V8. Is it V8?
Yeah, it's V8.
Oh, that's right. I got V8.
Well, it's not the right candidate for Michael, but if you wanted a Maserati, apparently this guy's put a lot of money into it. Maybe that's a good Maserati candidate.
No, he said no.
No. He said, I put all this money into it, and it's still a shitbox.
He said that when he goes to the Maserati dealership, they don't actually have mechanics, but they have an altar to the Maserati overlords, for lack of a better term,
Right.
and they like burn goats and stuff at it to try to
taking away their life
get the
energies,
to
right.
get the Maserati gods to agree with you and make your car run. That's what he said.
Sounds like a start of a
You
religion.
just
to
throw
me.
money in the fire, and then eventually your Maserati works. But he said his doesn't really work. So he said, "Do not drive it home." He said it runs, but don't.
The real problem is that F1 transmission.
Yeah, he spent
A
thousands
lot.
and thousands of dollars on it.
Yeah.
I feel like he should just sell it for whatever he can get out of it.
Yeah.
Because he was like, "Oh, I don't have to sell this." Well, you just wrote this giant Craigslist article about how
Your life is getting sucked out
Yeah,
of it.
right, your kids aren't eating,
You're
and
trying to explain to your children why they don't have a roof over your head because dad has to have this Maserati.
right, exactly. So maybe you should just sell it for whatever anybody's going to give you for it, and move on.
The problem is that something like this that went viral, it probably worked, and someone will give him his money.
Probably got enough exposure that somebody will buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some dumb kid or something with somebody else's money.
What was your buy it now price for that then?
What would I have bought it at?
Yeah.
10 grand probably. No, I didn't look at the car that closely. I read the article, but I didn't look that closely.
Yeah,
It's not the right color.
It's not the right color.
can
Red
wrap
or
it.
black
You
or
can wrap it.
navy or
And plus, if you paint it, we already talked about that. You don't want to do that. Just wrap it.
Just wrap. Or you just buy it the right color to begin with.
No,
Like buying
it's
it
already
the right
got a
color.
scratch in it. I guarantee it. You'll be mad.
that's
about
okay. Somebody else scratched it. It's okay on a used car.
Again, have someone to blame.
On a used car, you go into it going, okay, it's scratched. I'm paying for it now. Somebody else did the scratch. I know the scratch is there. It's not that big a deal.
Let's be real here. That's the least of your concerns when you own a Maserati.
That's true. Plus, if you're swapping the engine, you got other things to focus on.
I just want to make YouTube videos of taking engines out of cars that people like and setting them on fire and then putting LSs and things. I just want to lean into.
If we had never-ending funds,
I know.
that would be our
I just
YouTube
want to
channel.
lean into the hate and just put it in everything. I was actually just going to start a YouTube channel that was just trying to put LSs and things that they shouldn't fit in. And then when that doesn't work, just set the whole car on fire. And just be like, well, that didn't work.
Nope.
We
Call
tried.
fire department.
Like, not actually doing any fabrication or anything like that, but just like
stick it
trying to
in there.
stick it in. Like, get a 500 and just try to slam it in there, like with a hammer, just beating it in there. And it's like, oh, that didn't work. And then just lighting a match and throwing it in the passenger window.
Civic, like this does not fit in here the right way.
How is this even
Trash.
going to drive the wheels? Fuck it, burn it down.
Speaking of terrible swaps, just because this reminded me, I saw on the internet this week someone had taken the motor out of a Mazda Miata and put it in an SN95 Mustang.
That's terrible.
That's a really bad swap.
Well, so the comment, I think it was on like a Miata performance group that for on some unexplainable reason I'm in. I don't know why, but it was like, oh, don't worry. When I pulled the motor out for my Miata, I still was able to make one car or two cars out of two or something like that.
So he took the SN95
I think it was a joke.
4.6
I think
out of...
the guy who posted it didn't really build that car, but he found that picture on the internet. But somebody had put a turboed 1.8 or maybe 1.6. I don't know. Put a turboed VP Mazda motor in an SN95.
Even the turbo ones aren't like.
It did
Crazy.
look to me like a stock turbo car. Like he, took a motor and then turboed it.
Sounds like a lot of work for not very much.
Mustangsthatrun.com.
Oh, real quick, rode in a rotary this weekend at IFO. I know we're going to do IFO coverage later,
right.
But it does pull in an interesting way.
Turbo one?
No,
No.
a 13B, just a regular 13B. It pulls in an interesting way. Like the torque curve, it's like stupidly flat. It's really weird how it just power. You think you have to shift, but you don't. Power.
Well, that's why people like it.
9,000 RPM.
Yeah. No, I get why people like it. I do. A turbo one would be crazy.
Right.
It would be very fast, but
For a short amount of time, because
I'm just saying.
Nah, Robbie, if you beat on it, it lasts longer.
It's a drift car. It's fine. I'm beating the living piss out of it. Perfectly fine.
That's kind of the thing is, yeah, if your grandma driving it to work every day, yeah, it's probably going to blow up on you. But if you're beating the living piss out of it, bouncing it off the rev limiter, it's fine.
Actually,
It
the worst
loves
thing
it.
possible would be like a stanced RX-7 or RX-8 that's a show car. That would be like worst case scenario possible.
Yeah.
That shit's going to be, all that shit's going to be broken. Engine, suspension, wheels. You're going to be
Floor pan.
replacing tires all the time. Floor pan, body kit, whole thing's going to be screwed the whole time. That's a terrible build. Don't do
Yeah.
that.
don't be that guy.
But anyway, I just want to get that in there that I rode in it, and I get it. I'm not going to participate in it, but I understand. I understand why people like them,
Yeah.
but I also understand why people swap them. So that's all I'm saying.
It just fits too easy.
It does fit really well. What's next, Robbie?
The police in Ohio used a GPS tracking dart to catch a suspect.
Is this Fast and the Furious?
It's totally Too Fast, Too Furious.
Too
It's
Fast, Too
just
Furious?
like it.
Where's is it Tyrese?
Yes.
Is that that's when
Yes.
Tyrese came in, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they had the rad Eclipse that was front wheel drive and not turbocharged.
Oh yeah, his was all
yeah,
terrible.
And then he had the Lancer
It was not an Evo.
that was not an Evo.
It was just a Lancer.
And then there was the whole stare and drive thing, and they were trying to chase down a car, and they're like,
then they
they're
shoot.
like,
Then they shoot
fly
it with
under the radar, and they're like muscle cars and teriyaki boys and the whole thing.
No.
And
Nah, that was the wrong movie.
Teriyaki Boys was 3.
well, it was leading up to the teriyaki boys because it was the cars were terrible. They were really bad. You know what I mean? It was that whole
Yeah.
scene
You
of
You lost us at Teriyaki Boys.
because you got distracted by
Yeah,
that.
we're thinking about cool.
We
cars.
listened to it beforehand, and I've only ever heard it in the movie and then at a car show, and I was like, this song is not cool, but it is what it is.
It fits the scene.
And then we listened to it on my computer just now, and it was
terrible.
like the worst thing I've ever heard in my entire
When you
life.
listen to the words, it's
It's even worse.
What was the words again?
I don't remember.
This is it, and when you know it, this is
something
something.
Something
This
about
is
Tokyo?
Tokyo, and it's like
Fast and Furious
it doesn't
3.
it doesn't make any sense.
Robbie can't even.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
Oh no!
But anyways, so this
What were we
suspect.
talking about? Yeah.
the suspect. I don't know what he did. Like he tried to run away.
This is in Ohio,
No,
right?
and
Is
then
that what it was? Ohio.
They were driving with the car, and then they shot the dart out of the front of the car, and I assume it touched the back of the suspect's car, and then he drove away, and they just let him go. And then they went and basically arrested him as soon as he stopped.
This is a good idea.
I feel
I'm
like
not
this
against
would
it.
be like what's the success rate on actually getting this to tag the car?
Well, the interesting thing is it's attached to the police car, which
On
I
the-
would
yeah,
think
it's on
that
the bumper.
if you could do the full blown like Brian O'Connor out the window shooting it at people thing, that would be a better
I don't.
scenario.
I think the real thing would be like a cop parked, like roadblock style,
I think if they,
and shoot at it as it's coming at you, and then just let it go. And
I think if the technology is there to put it in your bumper, James Bond style. I'm sure you could just put it in a handheld version. It can't be that hard.
yeah, I think that someone should be standing
Yeah, I would rather have a
downwind.
gunner shoot it at him than trying to fire it off the front of the
There,
cruiser.
there can't be any real accuracy to that.
It's like a Nerf gun.
He did hit it.
Yeah, and it worked, and they avoided a high-speed chase. Was basically what their point was. Is instead of chasing this guy down and endangering hundreds, thousands of lives,
millions even.
Yeah,
Let's go there.
The whole world
Millions
was
and millions of people.
If this guy just takes off, the whole world is technically
He
endangered.
could have hit the dome.
Yep.
And put a hole in it.
That's a good point. He could have
If
flipped
he'd
the
have
disc.
drove to the edge.
He could have flipped the disc over.
Yep.
I mean,
That would've been bad.
that shit would be crazy. Our overlords would have been pissed.
We don't
for
want
sure.
that.
No, we don't want that.
Cthulhu comes down. It just gets bad.
The other downfall of this is that, O.J. Simpson's out of prison, right? He's not going to do the Bronco
Let's
Chase
just-
Mark II.
No.
When the new Bronco comes out, he can't do the whole rampage down the highway again.
Let's tag all of his vehicles up front and just get this out of the way.
That's where people were having a big problem
Yeah,
with it.
I know.
Because they were like, oh, this is a great idea and it could potentially stop high-speed chases, but what if they use it illegally and they just start, GPS tracking everybody? And it's like,
Let's be real here.
that technology isn't new.
The device you're listening to us on right now, it's tracking you.
It's got GPS
I'm
Bro.
tracking.
sorry, man.
When I drive around, there are 2 ways for the government to know where I am. I've got
OnStar.
OnStar and I've got my phone.
Yeah.
They know where I am.
Have you ever seen that Google page that you can pull up and it'll show everywhere you've been in the last 30 days?
Yeah, you have to tell it not to do that.
Yeah.
Oh,
but how many
that's
people
scary.
don't?
I know. Facebook's doing it now.
And the other thing, let's be real here for a second. I'm a little surprised that they don't monitor our speeds. They don't monitor our locations, stuff like that in cars. I'm surprised that that's not already a thing.
It's probably because of lobbyists from the ACLU, frankly.
Yeah.
Places like that. Because they weighed in on this and they said it's fine as long as it's not abused. They were okay with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude,
That's how that works.
I had to shut this feature off because somehow I got turned on. I don't know, maybe I clicked something, who knows. But
Probably comes by default, and every time you
yeah, but
get
now
a new
like
phone,
if
it
you're
comes that way.
if you talk to somebody regularly but you're not regularly but semi often and you're not necessarily in the same geographic location, if you come within 5 miles of each other or maybe less, it tells you.
No, I don't.
I don't need that shit in my life, dude.
That's weird.
For real, I
That's
don't
some
need
stalker
that.
stuff.
Because it happened with me and Spencer, because I went to Ankeny to go look at a job for work, and it's like, hey, you're near Spencer. I'm like, no, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. And then it brings up a thing where it says hey, you want to say something to him?
No.
Shit's wild, dude. I don't like that at all.
I like you, Spencer, but not that much.
Not enough to stalk you.
It's nothing against Spencer, but yeah, it does feel stalkery. Hey, this person's near you. You should talk to him. I shouldn't know where that person is. I don't like this. I want to be loud.
They were advertising. It's not like Tinder, but one of those dating sites that you can set it up so that if you
It tells you when you're close to a match.
no. That say I put my phone to have that app on it. I can't remember what it was, and I go walk around downtown tomorrow.
Not using a lot of dating apps lately, Robbie?
No, I got engaged, so I got rid of all those. But
Just recently. In the last couple of
Like
weeks.
in the last
yeah,
week or two.
before we
shit.
started the show, I was like, oh shit.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, yeah, not going to like that. Better delete that.
Yeah, she could go through that. What if what if I get in a car accident? She has to use my phone. It could be bad. No, gotta delete that shit.
Gotta think ahead. Gotta think ahead.
Sorry.
But it's super weird because they were advertising. It's it's the greatest thing. If I would walk downtown and leave my phone with the app on, just walk around a couple blocks, it would show the people who also have the app and who I cross paths with.
Yeah, dude.
That's fucking stalkery.
And it will tell you, if I understood the commercial, if you walk by that person every day, say you're commuting and you commute by that person every day.
Yeah, it'll tell you.
Oh, you see this
you
person
guys
every
get coffee from the same place
What?
every day?
No, dude, that's fucking weird.
That's so weird.
That's weird. There's got to be a way to control that so that
You just shut it off. I hope. That's weird.
There's got to be a way to engage in that behavior,
or block them.
yeah, dude. Because what if so if you tell people you walk by that person every day, what happens if you don't want to see that person? You got to change your commute now. It's fucking.
Sounds like a great way to get raped
It's not
because they
not a
know
good
where
idea.
you go every day. Oh yeah, this person gets coffee here every day.
That's the real irony, actually, is that we're worried about what the government's going to do to track us, but we actively engage all the time in being tracked.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about
Yep.
I don't want the government to track me either, but I'm being tracked by at least 2 or 3 different sources constantly.
It's very true.
Facebook's apparently listening to everything I say and do.
Yeah, because now somebody else said that they had some sort of freaking.
On the group, talking about a gym that he with a buddy, and then boom, later that day.
They're listening.
Oh yeah, they're fucking listening, man.
You agreed to it.
You did agree to it somewhere in
I
there.
know.
You hit a button.
If
and
someone
said yes.
wants to take the time to read their terms of service, then let me know.
Yep.
guys want to move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
A donkey is held liable for
That's
causing...
not what it says, Robbie. Start over.
No.
Start over.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish.
Okay.
A donkey is held liable for causing damage to an owner's McLaren 650S in Germany. What an ass.
Didn't realize this was a local news story. That was a pretty bad setup.
Well, I knew you'd appreciate it because you love puns and stuff like that. So tell us about
an
this
ass ate an ass off of a 650 is the short version of the story. Didn't he eat the ass off of it?
Yeah, he bit the wing or something.
Yeah, he just like, oh, that looks delicious.
It was orange, looked like carrot.
You met a donkey that you're like, this is a cool donkey?
Never once.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You ever been to the zoo, the petting zoo, and pet the donkeys and the goats and stuff?
I'll be honest. When I go to the zoo, the last thing I care about doing is going over and petting a bunch of farm animals I could have done for free.
But you don't, though.
This is Iowa, bro. You live in the country.
I don't go to the petting zoo at the zoo. There is a petting zoo in the Omaha Zoo. I go like 4 times a year minimum to the Omaha Zoo. Never once go.
Why do you go so many times?
Wait. Robbie, okay, wait for
Yeah.
this. Robbie lives in the countryside.
Yeah.
He could pet goats and shit for free, but he chooses to pay to go to the zoo to pet goats that he has in his backyard.
Let me be very clear. I go to both. I go to farms and pet animals, and
Robbie
I go
is
to the
just
zoo.
pro petting animals
I
in
am
general.
pro petting animals.
This got weird now.
No, it's not.
you-
It's not weird.
you
You
took
make
it to a weird place, you
It doesn't have to be
weirdo.
weird. It's perfectly normal petting animals. I was just trying to make fun of Robbie for living on his estate. Oh no, those animals are dirty. I better go to the zoo and pet those.
Yeah, those ones are clean.
Well, yeah.
No,
Get
those
clean
are
animals.
those zoo animals are even dirtier because all the
I know.
humans keep touching them.
Humans are gross.
Humans are gross.
All right, so this ass caused like what $40,000 for the
Yeah,
damage.
30 or 40 grand worth of damage just for chewing on the.
That's like a
650.
little scratch then, right? Just a scratch of
Probably.
the paint.
Yeah,
Well-
could you imagine what that paint cost?
If you chew on the wang of a 650S that's carbon fiber, it's probably a bad day.
Yeah.
And then paint. We know about paint because we talked about that
Yeah.
already. That sucks.
But he
They're
said
never going to color match that.
It's never
paint.
going to
Let's
color.
be
They're going to have
real.
to shoot it 6 or 7 times
the whole
to get the
car
right
just
color.
start fresh.
That's what
Yeah.
it was. They had to
It's
repaint
totaled.
the car. They actually just scratched it, but then they decided they had to repaint the whole car.
Well, they said that they brought it to McLaren and they actually covered all but 7,000 of it.
None of that made any sense.
all
No.
but 7,000.
I think the writer on this, who wrote this? Who is this from?
Probably on Jalopnik.
No, hold on. Hold on a second. Autoblog.
Yeah.
Somebody from Autoblog wrote this, and I think what their point was that it was covered by insurance except for $7,000.
Right.
And then
Which was his deductible, or I mean,
no, they said that he should have parked the car. So they gave a percentage fault. And so they said he was
okay.
at like
I
30%
gotcha.
fault or whatever that works out to.
Oh, so the donkey was 70% at fault.
Yeah, and he was
he
30%
was
at
30%
fault.
at
And I'm
fault.
just making up numbers.
Right,
But that was,
right.
yeah, and so they're like, well, somebody's paying for this because we're only paying for 21,000 of it. And then,
Yeah, you pay the rest.
you pay the rest. And
Well, that's
so
got to suck for the
Was that the car's insurance or the donkey?
the donkey insurance.
probably homeowners insurance
Is
for
that
the
State Farm? Is that where you buy donkey insurance?
I don't know.
Farm
what-
Bureau.
Does Germany have?
Farm Bureau for
Farm
sure.
Bureau is
yeah.
where you buy your
Yeah,
donkey
yeah.
insurance.
Yeah, probably.
What's the registration number on your donkey, sir? Thank you.
Is that what those little tags in their ears are?
Yeah, registration. That's what it is.
Those are
You got to pay road
those are
tax.
identification numbers.
You have to pay road tax on your donkey,
That's,
Robbie. If you're
that's expired.
So
They don't expire. It's like the name.
the owner ended up suing the donkey's owner. That's what it came down to.
Yeah.
And the owner won, obviously. Or the
McLaren.
The McLaren owner won over the donkey owner.
What I'm fascinated by, the thing that I find most interesting about this story, is in what situation does apparently a free range donkey and a McLaren exist together?
Well, I assume he's parked like
What
right,
sort of
right off the road, and then
But what sort of McLaren owner goes to a place where donkeys are roaming wild, Robbie? Damn it,
Ricky Bobby.
I work with Bob all day long, and then I come here and oh damn it.
Robert.
If it makes you
a
feel better, I
McLaren
call
owner.
him Robbie all the time. So
I appreciate that. A McLaren owner that actually drives his McLaren. That's who.
Yeah, he was driving it through the countryside apparently,
Yep.
and had an incident involving a donkey. That happens all the time.
was it a fast donkey? Was he chasing after it?
I don't think so. I think
it
he
was-
parked it there.
Ah, damn it!
I think that was the
Be a way
problem.
better story.
He was just stubborn.
Man, that was pretty terrible as well. Why don't you move on over there?
Oh, I love it. Thank you
All right.
so much.
Cadillac is leaving the Pirelli World Challenge. Yes.
Yep.
To focus on DPI. Wait, does DPI?
Yes,
Sorry, I saw
Daytona Prototype
Gotcha.
International.
Totally You put me down a weird path, and you
Don't go there, Robbie.
Robbie,
Don't go
dig
there,
it out.
Robbie.
Dig yourself out from that hole that you dug last week with that engineer's name.
Bugatti.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
There's a hole.
Weirdo.
Anyway, the biggest thing is that the ATS VR is awesome, and I'm gonna miss it. And they Cadillac has come out and said we're not interested in a customer program. We're just killing them. And that's too bad because
That is too
they're
bad.
really cool cars, and I think they've been relatively successful.
They've been extremely successful.
And I
Yeah.
think a customer program would have been simple for Cadillac. Why wouldn't you want a customer program? You've already developed the car. Just sell it to a couple of the right people
Yeah.
and let it move on. Who cares?
Yeah, so 11 years with the Pirelli Series, 7 drivers' championships, 5 manufacturers' titles, 121 podiums, 25 poles on 332 races.
Yeah, and that's
Which obviously is multiple drivers, but
That's what you call
and a few
dominance.
different chassis. But
yeah, starting with the CTS when they built the first V, 2004 or whatever that would have been.
But I don't know. DPI is exciting. I think there's a lot of good things going on there. There's a lot of manufacturers that are wanting to get involved in it. I think it's going to be a really great class. I'm excited for that. But I love PWC. It's always been one of my favorites, and I'm going to miss that car.
I think this brought Cadillac back,
Yeah.
in
Racing?
my opinion. Yeah, racing in this series specifically.
PWC?
Yeah, especially the
Didn't
V
hurt.
series. I mean, it completely changed the landscape and understanding of what Cadillac is as a brand. You know, it was an old people brand, and then it was like, didn't know what it was, and then they're like, hey, we brought out this new car, and it looks crazy, and we put a V8 in it, and oh, we got race cars now, and people are like, oh, that's interesting, and then they're like, oh, this car doesn't suck. So I think it completely turned the brand around for them, because otherwise it'd be like Lincoln.
Yeah, do they even make a car anymore? I mean,
Supposedly, I think they're going to make that Continental, which was cool, but like nobody cared. Actually, is cool. The Continental's cool, but
but they
nobody
probably
cares.
won't have suicide doors, and so I'm not
No.
interested.
I don't think it does.
I don't care that.
I don't see any point of making anything called a Continental if it doesn't have suicide doors.
Right, exactly.
Don't make it retro. Don't even waste your time.
leave
Just
me
get
out.
rid of it. Just drop your trademark and move on with your life,
Right.
unless it's got suicide doors on it.
Right.
I don't even care if it's slow.
Right. No, it should be.
It should have air suspension
It
as
should
well.
be slow. It should have, real sidewall. It should be comfy. And it should have suicide doors.
I get it. Don't be Cadillac. Don't be
Nah,
Infinity.
Someone's already doing that.
Don't be BMW.
Do something that no one else is
Be
doing.
Lincoln. Be the Continental.
Right.
Be baller.
But anyway, yeah. Don't have a lot to say about it.
It is unfortunate.
It is
I agree.
unfortunate.
that
It
It
is
is unfortunate.
It seems that a
Because-
lot of these.
And I'm just really taken aback by their complete and total unwillingness to have a customer program. I just don't understand that one, I guess.
Yeah, it's surprising.
I mean, maybe they're trying to protect their brand, but you could be picky on who you sell it to. You don't have to sell it to every Joe Schmo that strolls through the door and says, hey, here's your $500,000. I want your ATS VR. You could be more picky than that,
yeah.
but I think,
That's true. You could have professional teams buy your cars still.
yeah.
I mean
you
teams
don't-
that make, actually
it
make
is
money
your
racing.
right not to sell to whoever you don't want to sell to.
Absolutely. I agree.
So why not? But
I agree.
I don't know. DPI looks exciting. It looks fun, but I like door slammers.
I do like door slammers.
Yep.
It's good for Corvette, too.
It is good for Corvette. It's good for Honda because I believe that car was right up against the NSX in PWC. And so now they're just going to go around and dominate all. Maybe actually be able to sell a couple of those.
I saw one in Des Moines.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I was surprised
I
coming
wonder
out
if
of
that's
Glen
going to
Oaks.
end up on Turo.
Coming out of Glen Oaks, so probably not. But who knows? He's probably leveraged to the hilt, so.
Up to his eyeballs in debt.
Yep,
It's fine.
That's usually how that sort of thing works.
It's that meme or that gif where the dog's like sitting in the room on fire. Now it's fine.
Everything's fine.
It's
Everything's
fine.
going super great.
Nice and well balanced here.
Our buddies over at Petrolbox, this month, this is their 1-year anniversary, so they are giving away a 1-year subscription to Petrolbox. So make sure to go to their Facebook or Instagram page. Facebook is Petrolbox, and Instagram is at my.petrolbox. And you can find some details on how to be entered for the 1 year of free boxes from them. They're going to announce that at SEMA, so that's a pretty sweet program they're doing for their 1-year anniversary. Things are going really well for their company. We're really excited that they're a partner of ours, and it's exciting to see them get to celebrate anniversaries and stuff, and their company grow and stuff like that. That's cool. So Go check that out. Definitely follow them. There's instructions on those posts. I think the one on Facebook's pinned, and you can find the one on Instagram pretty easily.
There'll be more.
We'll post it too. Information on how to enter for that.
And if you haven't already watched the YouTube video of us unboxing it, definitely go over there.
Check out the video because there's, like we said last week, there's some red stuff in there.
Have you had a chance to use any of your stuff yet?
I haven't because, I wore the shirt.
The Hoonigan shirt?
I wore the Hoonigan shirt.
Did it shrink nicely? Or did it?
It shrunk. It shrunk a. Well, I think it shrunk a little bit.
Did it shrunk perfectly?
Yeah.
So it fits your.
Damn it.
Yes.
Damn it.
There's nothing. There's nothing better than a nice, well-fitted shirt.
That means I'm going to wear it once and never again.
Just never wash it.
Got to get those fitted.
You like the baggy shirts. You need fitted shirts,
bro. You need fitted shirts so that the whole of the internet community makes fun of you.
I have the wrong taper though. It doesn't work.
We can work on your taper.
I taper the wrong direction. I can't wear those shirts.
If you go to the gym, you can work on your taper. Then you'll fit.
We'll work on your taper, bro.
Yeah.
I was eating one of those P3 protein pack things today.
That's healthy-ish.
And my
That's
supervisor was like making fun of me for it. And I was like, dude, I live that swole life. Does it not look like I spent tons of time in the gym?
Did he get really
just laughed
confused?
at me?
BCAAs, homie. That's what you got to tell people. Confuse them.
But anyways,
Antioxidants.
I did use the Adams glass cleaner.
Oh, yes.
Best glass cleaner I've ever used. I'm not just saying it because it came in the box of Petrolbox. Like, legitimately, I sprayed it on going, okay, oh, shit, where's my... Where's
Did you use that microfiber?
Yeah, I was like, where's my
my...
microfiber? And I forgot. And, I went and grabbed it. But I'm like, oh, this is going to be so streaky. And I wipe it down real quick. I'm like, holy crap. Crystal clear. No streaks. Like, it's like I usually use moonshine, like that foamy stuff.
That's what I was going to ask you. The foamy stuff that we talked about.
I love foaming.
I was diehard about the foaming moonshine. That's the only stuff I would use. This stuff's better. Like no joke. I was extremely impressed.
I'll have to try it out myself then. See how I feel about it.
Crazy. Rad stuff in the boxes. If you guys want to sign up, go to their website and enter the code TENTENTHS. Like I've said before, you run through some questions about sizing. When you go to checkout, enter the code TENTENTHS with an S on the end and get $7 off your first month. Also, you'll be entered to win the set of Rotiform one-piece cast wheels. So you have to be signed up to win the wheels. So do that for sure. Just search out Petrolbox. Find their social media, follow them, check the website out, enter, put the code in. Win free stuff. I don't know what more people want.
Seems like a no-brainer.
There's like a bunch of free stuff.
Just do it.
We're just giving people a bunch of free stuff, and they should just do it. I don't even know why.
Free podcast.
It's a free podcast. Free wheels.
What do you want?
Money off of stuff. More free things. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm talking to a wall sometimes, Robbie. That's all I'm saying.
It's a lot of value added.
It is a lot of value add. People love talking about value add in business. This is your value add. This is what you're bringing to the table. We got to come up with like 10 more minutes worth of content.
So we can break that 2 hour mark?
So we can go past 2 hours again.
I can do it. Don't you worry.
We have drifting things to do this week, and I would like to have this edited before I leave.
You know what the raddest part about this is that Kevin's interview is coming out during the O-Drift event. So I'm going to put that out there a little bit.
Tell everybody.
Oh, bam! There you go. You guys know this guy.
Oh, man.
Promotional machine this week, Robbie.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, you should go to our Facebook group.
Ooh.
Like Kevin did.
We are terrible about our socials.
Have pro drifters on our Facebook now, or on our group now. Like pro athletes, pretty rad. You can talk to them. They post stuff on there. It's fucking crazy. So you should go on there and add yourself to that.
He's a shockingly nice guy.
He's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
He wants the memes. Don't disappoint him.
Please give Kevin memes.
Don't disappoint him, people.
On the group.
While you're there, like our page, hit up that Instagram, subscribe to some YouTube.
Yes.
Leave a review.
Leave a review for sure.
We got a 3-star rating. Whoever you are out there, leave me a goddamn review too.
Adam would like some feedback.
I want to know. I want to know why you only gave us 3 stars so that I can not do a damn thing about it.
So if you want to counteract that 3-star, go in there and give us some 5 stars, please.
What's really funny is, like last year, I probably would have died.
It ruined my day for like 3 seconds. I'm like, wait, I don't give a
fuck is this?
This guy is too much of a pussy to even leave a review. I don't even care about what he thinks. He leaves a rating and not a review. Not worth my time.
It's probably another podcast just shitting on us.
That's what I assume.
It's a podcast.
Honestly, that's exactly what I assume. Is in some podcast that we've kind of
shit talked
shit talked on the show by kind of accidental or whatever.
It's
and
a
he
jalop-
just happened to listen.
It's a Jalopnik writer. It has to be. It has to be.
Because I tagged Jalopnik on our when we talk shit on our
I should
shout
tag
engine post.
Jalopnik in our Facebook stuff more often.
Yeah, so they listened and they're like, "Man, you hurt my feelings," and so now
3-star.
they're trying to hurt our feelings. Like it's funny, but it's not funny because
Joke's on you. We still have a 5-star rating. Still averages out to 5. Boom.
Oh, rounds up or something.
Well, I assume they're not going to put 4.999, so they just still at 5.
Hell yeah, it's wild.
Was that 10 minutes? Do we need to
No.
keep going? I can keep going.
Oh, we literally no. That was like 3 minutes.
Ah, damn it.
I suppose we should just end it.
You're right.
What do you think, Robbie?
Maybe if it takes too long, I'll just do it. Edit next week, and you guys can worry about it later.
What edit? Oh, for the YouTube version
man.
of the show.
I care. I care about the YouTube video.
I know you do.
Especially,
I've had
this one.
lots of people give us compliments about Robbie's YouTube stuff.
Especially this one, because you talk about cool stuff, and I got lots of pictures. Man, it's gonna be cool.
People who
It's
aren't
gonna
like
be cool.
super diehard car guys really like Robbie's slideshows.
It's true.
Yeah, granted, they're just slideshows. I mean, let's not make it sound like it's anything cooler than that. They're
But it's
pictures of
helpful.
what we're talking about.
It is.
helpful,
It
though.
is helpful for people.
I enjoy it.
And we've made like 3.5 cents on YouTube.
Actually, we made like $6.
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
Robbie.
And that was after they took
I'm
away.
quitting my job.
Well, that's after they took away the.
Monetization
Yeah,
change.
because we had less than 10,000 views, they took away monetization.
Where are we at now?
Like
Getting
6,000.
close, aren't we?
6,000.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I thought we were close.
Yeah.
That's all right. We'll get there again.
Yeah.
All right, let's end it because we're just rambling now.
Yep. No,
Catch you
no,
guys.
yeah.
Catch you guys next week.